So it's 8 o'clock, and I want to welcome everyone to At the Intersection this morning. If you're new, my name is Ann Helmke, and I'm the Faith Liaison with the City of San Antonio. And we are going to take 2 minutes, I think, to do some announcements. One, I wanted to mention because next Thursday, it's going to be too late, frankly. I got this from Lisa Epstein at the Jewish Community Center yesterday, and she wanted to announce this open house, which is a week from today. I'll announce it again next week, but if I only announced it next week, that was going to be too late, right? So this is an open house at the Holocaust Memorial Museum next Thursday in the evening, and it's a reception for the interfaith community. So I just wanted to make that quickly. And again, there's still time to register and get other folks registered for Pathways to Hope tomorrow. I do know that they were still looking for volunteers. Doug, do you still need volunteers?
We could use a few more, yeah.
So Doug's gonna put, or I will put a link in the chat for where you go to volunteer. But it's general volunteers pointing people in the right direction, handing out things, but whoever volunteers through them will also get their lunch free. So if you know someone who could really benefit and would appreciate going to the conference, that would be a great way to go, right? Free registration, free lunch, you know, to point people places, give handouts and things like that. So if anybody else has announcements, if you just put those into the chat, that would be great, because this morning we're going to do more of a working session together and kind of go into it like we would collaborative working on an effort or a project. Part of, and it doesn't always happen, but part of what happens with collaboratives, one, collaboratives try not to duplicate work. So if there's some duplication, oftentimes it's tried to streamline that so that people aren't overproducing or overworking, right? So it's about strengthening and supporting each other, putting kind of the puzzle pieces together in that kind of a spectrum or a continuum of compassionate care. But we also look on collaboratives where there's something missing that's needed, a gap. And it's been almost exactly, I don't know the date, Nadia might know better, or Wendy, but it's almost exactly a year since the Afghan Refugee Response Collaborative formed, website went up, and then the influx of those folks followed that. But in that collaborative, the gap that was missing, because we've heard the last couple of weeks about immigration and refugees last week, but it's the ongoing kind of wrap around for those who are going to, or becoming San Antonians, that wrap around of welcome and ongoing relationship. And I know you all know what I mean. You know, like when you move someplace, it's really helpful when you find somebody to be your friend and they tell you all about the best grocery stores and how to manage this or how to go to such and such and where the best clinic is, that kind of thing. As well as just, well, the best part is the relationship that happens. I do have to tell one story. Last month, there was a banquet to celebrate this year, this communities of welcome. And there was a congregation, Temple Bethel, that was partnered with a family. And that baby with the family had been crying. Yes, Nadia's laughing, like crying, right? And it didn't really bother anybody, but the baby was crying, right? And the guy from Temple Bethel had been up at the podium and telling his part of that story. It was beautiful. The baby's crying. And then the mother it's her turn, the family's turn to come and talk about their side of the story. And that guy from Temple Bethel took that baby, and about less than a minute later, that baby was knocked out on his shoulder and drooling. It was, I wish I had taken a picture. It was the most beautiful thing, you know, and I thought that was the best moment of the evening. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a briefing, an update on this collaborative effort, how it came into being, and what it's done and what it looks like, all those wonderful things. And we're going to hear from Nadia and Nader and Wendy, and they're going to be talking about how the partnership formed and how it just all grew. So we're going to hear that. And then we're going to open up the room and explore. I look back now in this year and I think, well, that was kind of like a pilot. It was a test. It wasn't set up that way, right? It was set up to meet the gap, and it did. But now we've tried it. And so we're going to hear about it first, and then what might this mean? Okay. So I hand it over to the team Communities of Welcome. And there you go.
Thank you, Anne. Hi, everyone. My name is Nadia Mavrakis. I'm the CEO of Culturengua. Culturengua is a community-based organization focused on community and economic development in the medical center area, where there are a lot of immigrants and refugees living. And maybe you can also add Wendy to the spotlight. Nader, do you want to introduce yourself and then?
Sure. So my name is Nader Mehdoui. I'm the Chief Operating Officer with Culturengua. And so yeah, we can go introduction and then maybe we can talk about the community of welcome. Wendy, do you want to go ahead?
Certainly. I'm Wendy Holbrook. I'm the Executive Director for Interfaith San Antonio Alliance. So our efforts are to be a voice in the community for all of us, for all the faiths who are working together for the good of the community.
So maybe, Wendy, maybe you could start off by talking about how Communities of Welcome was sort of born and how our two organizations came together.
Yeah, because that's a real favorite story of mine. Through the Afghan Refugee Response Collaborative, and I always hope I get all those letters right, the ARRC, that was that initial push, and so many folks meeting on Zoom every week with Anne and with Tino and with so many others. And certainly we were anchored, if you will, by the resettlement agencies. And that's an important piece that we all have to remember, that the resettlement agencies, they were the gatekeepers for receiving the refugees into the community, but they were so overwhelmed in the coming months. You know, last year in August, we simply knew that the United States was pulling out of Afghanistan, and that meant that eventually people would be here, but it took a while. So in that period in between August and say October, we were all gearing up. And one of the big gaps, as Anne put it, that was needed in the community were relational pieces, people that would come alongside, walk with the Afghan families into this new life and new community. So we knew that was a perfect fit for faith communities. That's the kind of thing that congregations do all the time in their neighborhoods, but it was going to be reaching out to this new population in the community. So since I work with congregational leadership, then it was kind of a natural fit. And yet I readily realized I didn't know much of anything about working with refugees and navigating some of those specifics with, again, those gatekeeper resettlement agencies. So through those Zoom meetings, I met Nadia and then eventually Nader. And I said, Nadia, I know we're in the midst of COVID, but if you'd be willing to sit down and meet over a cup of coffee, maybe we could make some things happen between your expertise and my connections with the congregational leaders. And that's really where the genesis of Community of Welcome was born, was at a Starbucks near her house.
Thanks, Wendy. So maybe I'll give a brief overview of communities of welcome, and then I think Nader has a short video that he'll show that, and we'll kind of give a little bit more feel for it. Communities of welcome is a way for congregations and other organizations in San Antonio to welcome new refugee families. And so what we did was we put out a call for requests for communities of welcome who would be willing to step up and say, we want to welcome a new family into their new home in San Antonio and support them. And as Wendy referenced, the refugee resettlement agencies are formally contracted by the State Department as well as the U.S. Health and Human Services Department to facilitate many of the essential first 90-day tactical integration activities related to finding housing and enrolling in school and things like that. But what we recognized was that there was really a need for additional support to welcome them into the community and integrate them and ensure that they felt as though they had a new home and that they were connected to the existing San Antonio community. And so we had an application process to ask organizations and congregations to apply. Meanwhile, we formed formal data sharing and referral agreements with the refugee resettlement agencies who identified families that they felt were in need of that extra level of support from a congregation or organization, recognizing that we are working with sensitive data and that we really needed to formalize what that referral and partnership agreement would look like. And then we had a welcome walk last December, which was a kickoff for the formal program, which we will show videos and more of, but that was a 1 mile walk, physical walk, and also a metaphorical walk of existing San Antonio residents walking alongside their new immigrant and refugee neighbors together into their new lives. And we have our second annual welcome walk, which I hope you all will save the date for, on Saturday, November 12th at the Denman Estate Park. The mayor will be there, and he has also invited the regional director for U.S. Health and Human Services to show the country the model of how San Antonio is a welcoming city for new refugees and immigrants. Now that I'll hand it off to you to talk a little bit more about how those relationships were formed and maybe show some photos so that people can get a feel for all of the activities that occurred.
Sure. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Wendy. So as Anne and Nadia mentioned, so we did, there's a lot of people showed interest to support at the beginning, but we didn't have what Community of Welcome is basically try to put a structure to it, try to put a process to it, formally get families who came here recently and connect them with the refugees and with organizations like yours. And I see some couple of organizations, Michelle from Celebration Circle, I think I saw Don, and I saw Lisa. So I want to say thank you for being part of the Community of Welcome and making San Antonio a welcoming city. I'm going to share a video and I'm going to talk over the video. And oh yeah, I can share my screen. Thank you.
You should.
Okay. So this video gives a summary of some of the activity that we did, starting from the welcome walk. So this is the welcome walk, which happened in December of last year, was the announcement of the Community of Welcome program. We invited all refugees who recently came here and the organization or residents in the city. We tried to do activity, get to know them, and just do a walk, simply do a walk. So that was the first announcement or kickoff event for the Community of Welcome program. we had a lot organization and who were part of this event, and it was a very beautiful event. As you can see, and then through that, after that, we started the Community of Welcome program. Through the application, we got the families and connected them. And then throughout the program, we did several big community events. For example, this is the Sport Day event where we invited the organization that were part of the Community of Welcome with their families. And we had like a big day for Sport Day. We did cricket, volleyball, basketball, soccer. We did some songs, all of this through the organization that were part of this. And also we had a big staff. Thanks for Dr. Farrell, for medical staff to do a checkup and vaccination and medical evaluation and referral. We also did some food distribution, and that's the medical staff. That's my daughter there. That's a lot of the volunteers. And then we did another day where we did like a food and resource day, when we invited a lot of the resources, communities, organization that provide service to the organization or to the refugee family directly. So the Community of Welcome partners come to learn about what resources are there. And we also did like a potluck where we asked the Afghani to bring food, and we brought food, and we shared all that together. So we had like get together, and we spent some time with those family. We also did some fresh food distribution and food boxes there, and we also did some medical vaccination and evaluation and checkups. So those, and then also we did a service day where we invited the community in the medical center to, and we chose the place that was designated by the city as a park. However, it's not used or maintained at all to be used as a park. We start cleaning, and we did that service also to show the recent immigrant the value of the service or giving back to the community. And we did it together. The recent immigrant who just came here to the San Antonio and the existing residents together did the service day. And then some people were talking or interviewed to showing the need for a park where the refugees live, and how is that very important. We also, through the program, there's through Community of Welcome program, there is another program came up to life, which is the Sewing for Success. We have noticed that a lot of those women, the refugee Afghani women, already have the skill for sewing. Some of them already do sewing at home to fulfill the needs for their families. So we thought, well, why we don't pilot a program to give them materials, give them sewing machines, and start producing, see if if they would be able to produce some dresses that we'd be able to sell to the community. So that's what, we did that, and I'll talk more about it. This is another event we did specifically for people who have businesses within the Afghani community to encourage them. We did a panel discussion. We brought some of the business Afghani women and men just to talk about what's their need, how can we help them be independent, not start like, I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute. So not just start to stop basically depending on themselves and grow their have a financial mobility. So that was the last event. Sorry, that was one of the events. The last event was the end of the event where we did the World Refugee Day. The World Refugee Day basically was a dinner celebration. And that's where we also did fashion show from the dresses that the Afghani women made through the Sewing for Success. These are the dresses that we made. We made 165 dresses. A lot of them were sold there at that event, and we did also a fashion show during that event. I was very trying to see more of the dresses here. So here, this is some of the ladies that showing the dresses of the Afghani women were made through the program. There was a lot of beautiful dresses, and this was like kind of the closing event. I'm gonna stop showing. Excuse me, 1 minute. So the World Refugee Day was like the closing event. We decided to have an end date for the program so we can evaluate. And that's what we're doing right now. Now we are going through evaluation. What went well during that program, the Community of Welcome program? What did not go so well? How can we improve it even better? Again, I want to thank all the organization that was part of this. This wouldn't happen if they weren't part of it. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We are working to improve and develop and start another community of welcome, hopefully, and announce it in November 12th during the San Antonio Welcome Walk. And we're also working on continuing the Sewing for Success program through the Community of Welcome program. And I want to share also here, if Anne allow me, just if there's anyone is interested or would be interested or know some organization would be interested, we can make sure that when the application comes, we can share it with them.
Thanks, Nader. And I just want to say one small story before we hand it to Anne to lead us through the next part of the discussion, which is that the communities of welcome themselves have also proven and shown to be leaders nationally in welcoming Afghan refugees. Michelle Brinkley, who's on the call with Celebration Circle, through the Community of Welcome program, Celebration Circle became members of Welcoming America, which is a national nonprofit that supports immigrant integration. And just this week, someone from, I can't remember which state, another state, sent an email on the distro for every Welcoming America community and said, I'm having trouble with finding Pashto and Dari interpreters. And Michelle Brinkley, as a leader from San Antonio, wrote back to everyone across America, there's the Tarjimli app, and you can use it to support your interpretation needs. So I just wanted to share that story. First, to say thank you to Michelle and all the communities of welcome, but to show that this effort shows that San Antonio truly is a leader across the country and around the world for welcoming new refugees and immigrants into our community.
Michelle also shared something this morning. I don't know if you can see this, but she sent me just now this photo that I was describing the story. And there he is asleep.
And that's Roger Ojeda.
Yeah.
The gentleman holding the baby is Roger Ojeda.
How many congregations partnered with families?
So we had.
How many of those did you have?
We had when we sent the opened the program, we had 10 organizations applied for this, and part of this. They were mostly faith-based organization. We had one university, we had one business, and we had one just a regular community, not a faith-based organization. Mm-hmm. So it's open basically for every organization, not just faith-based. Businesses can be part of it, universities, community colleges, or any organization that would like to be partnered. And also the way it works, like based on capacity. So we don't dictate what you should do and what you should, we give guidance to through the program, and we try to provide resources. And we try to put it in a structure. And then based on the capacity, we try to create a plan, let's say for 6 months. we create a plan with that organization. How, based on your capacity, how can we help you to create a program? And we walk with them and we create a program. Either maybe we do a dinner. We did a lot of dinners. We do this coming now, the next phase. So the first phase was a lot of learning. So in the next phase, we're trying to put more structure. We're trying to have more like maybe English classes in each community or complex. And we're trying to provide those resources. Yeah.
So what I want to do right now, one, it's 8:25, and Celeste already has her hand up. So we're on a go here in a minute.
Well,
yes,
I want to make another comment about congregations. One of the things that I was so impressed with, and this happened with differing groups, both the Jewish community as well as the Nazarenes, as opposed to necessarily it being a one-on-one congregation and family. You mentioned Temple Bethel. Well, yes, Roger Ojeda is a member at Temple Bethel, but it wasn't Temple Bethel's community of welcome. It was a much broader Jewish community that came together to create that community of welcome. And that in and of itself was a beautiful thing of congregations working with each other. And that happened in the Nazarenes, LDS. There were multiple congregations in a larger sense who came together in these differing communities of welcome. And so thanks to Lisa Epstein for helping that happen.
Yeah, that's great. And it's helpful to understand how that looks. And so it's creating community, right? So one, I'm just going to pause because now it's 8:27, which is great. For those who might have to leave at 8:30, I'm going to ask our team if they can stay another 10 or 15 minutes so we can kind of explore together. Great. Those who do need to leave next week, we're going to be hearing from the Housing via the Faith Community Collaborative. So how is the faith community connecting with the housing plans of the city, and what is that looking like? So that will be next week, and I hope you join us at that. I'm going to put, if I can, into gallery. So we're all doing this together. So collaboratives too, when they come together, I think a lot of the atmosphere in a collaborative is a what if atmosphere. You know, like what's needed, how can we help, but what if we did this, what if it looked like that? You know, the questions kind of help things bubble up and creativity. So that's what I'd like to do for the next 10 or 15 minutes, is to kind of like, okay, we've heard where it's at, how it came forward in this, seventh largest city, or are we sixth these days in the country? This wonderful thing that has been birthed. What could be happening? Where could it go? And to bring the wisdom of everybody who's here into that atmosphere of where could this go? And we've got a lot of history and a lot of experience here on the screen, so that'll be great. So Celeste is already modeling for us. She's put up her hand, and that's why so if you've got a thought, an idea, a question of understanding, those that are needed as well. So we're going to have a collaborative conversation. So Celeste.
Yes, hi. My name is Celeste, and I live in San Antonio. I'm in District 8 right now. I'm single woman, Catholic, Black African-American, and no children. And I have an apartment. And I live in District 8, and I was saying that. So I live right around the corner from the Refugee Center. If you know what I'm saying. You know where the Refugee Center in Wurzbach. So I live right around the corner. And so there are a lot of Afghanis, Pakistanians in my neighborhood and everything. And I know she's mentioned, the hostess mentioned, we're going to be talking about housing opportunities and programs that need to be applied next week. But this is my first meeting, and my immediate concern living in the neighborhood was housing programs, because I think it should be separate. Because not that the complex I live in is diverse in ethnic range, but also economically too. And so a lot of the Emirates families from the Emirates are ex-military translators, like they have experience, professional experience, and they're relocating or, seeking asylum or whatever. And so I'm just saying that maybe they should be given more adequate, better adequate housing choices, because they have families and children, and the accommodations that the complex that we're living in, that we are living in, are efficient enough for people that are living single by themselves. Like, you don't really see the families that you see have one child, maybe one child, and they have cars, and it's one parent or two parent, and they drive to a laundromat or something together, the whole family, to help. The families of the Emirates, the mother is responsible for doing the home care, and the space that we're living in is not conducive enough for the mother to do all of this home house care. A lot of these mothers. And then someone's asking, is there, for especially the ex-military families, and they need adequate housing. And I'm pretty sure they don't want to cross over, those benefits or whatever. But if there's somehow, on the application forms, if there's specific information, they would ask to find out what families need what.
So Celeste, what you brought up, and I'm sure that the team here today will probably want to respond, but this is a perfect example of how the different collaboratives also are connected. So I mentioned that next week, the collaborative is housing, that the faith community is trying to help. San Antonio doesn't have adequate housing across the entire spectrum.
I'm aware, yeah. I've been in line for housing for years, and I haven't been awarded it yet, but at least I'm on the list because my parents are getting very old.
Right. So one of those conversations is this one. They're from within that housing collaborative. They're looking at housing for seniors. How can the faith community help with that? Housing with immigrants and refugees. Housing, for the homeless.
Correct. Yeah.
And there is a conversation that's forming, a collaborative that's forming around housing in particular in terms of immigration and refugees. What is that going to look like? But
that's what I said. That's what I was saying. The families from the Emirates, their husbands are ex-military work for the military.
I get that. I'm just saying, Celeste, I'm going to let.
But their wives are different than the other wives. And it's like
the team answered. There weren't a lot of options for anybody at the time. Yeah, we know what you're talking about.
I just feel like
you want to respond?
Yeah, Celeste, it sounds like you have a lot of concern for your neighbors, and I greatly appreciate that. Our role in Community of Welcome was not in making housing placements. That comes under the work of the resettlement agencies, those agencies that have funding from the federal government to help make those housing placements, et cetera. And as you've experienced, as Ann said, we are in a housing crisis in San Antonio writ large. And so when there were literally thousands of new families, and most of them very large families, coming just month after month, it was a matter of doing the best that they could. And when I say they, I'm talking about those resettlement agencies, the best that they could in simply getting people into shelter. And now there's the ongoing process of trying to renegotiate things to make things better for everyone. But
what I'm saying is that there are, especially when apartments are remodeling, that there's people are placed in adequate as given adequate facilities because according to what they need as a family. Because when my apartment complex I'm living in,
that's not something our organization or our work had any direct impact with.
Yeah, that's what the direct services organization. So
I was just wondering. I have a lot of neighbors. I have a lot of neighbors, and they have children, and they go walking at night. And I was just, when you brought up the walk and everything and stuff like that, I was like, well, maybe they're not, because they go walking every night. And I always say hello to them. I always say hi and hello. And some of them remember me. I remember them because I've been here for 3 years in the complex, and they've grown up already. They start driving. They're driving now. They've got the 16-year-olds, they're driving. And it's funny. And we're kind of friends. And it's great.
That's great.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Michelle, we're going to go to Karen so we can get some more input. And Michelle has her hand up then next. This is perfect, though. This is an example of how it's not easy. And everybody's doing their best. Karen, what you got thinking in your head?
All right. Thank you. I was wondering if there might not be a potential linkage with the service learning programs through the universities that are here. Each of the universities here, I'm pretty sure all of them have some type of service learning program where students are encouraged to volunteer somewhere. But the colleges also have international students. So is there a way to kind of maximize a win-win here where we take some of the international students, have them connect with the refugee population where there's similar language, and then they can hear firsthand what are some of the needs that are occurring in this transition for these families that the students connected to the university programs then might be able to find a response to. So I'll just give one example that's looming in my mind. I also live in District 8, so I'm near where many of these families are. And to my mind, the closest worship is the Catholic Church. But many of these families are probably Muslim. So is there a need for transportation to get families to a mosque? And is that something that the service learning programs might be able to take on or something of that nature? And I'll throw the question to you guys.
Yeah, so any thoughts, Nadia?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We did actually partner formally with UIW with Dr. Lupita Nath, who's a history professor and teaches about refugees. And so I think that was a great sort of pilot of what you're describing, which is engaging the university population. And I think broadly students, we also work closely with Students of Service, which is a nonprofit that is more focused at the high school level, but on service. And so I think that what you've just described is a perfect expansion of how we can engage more people throughout San Antonio in the welcoming efforts. So we would welcome, I don't think that we have direct links to any universities that from the service learning program perspective. So if you have any warm connections that you can make, we would love that.
I bet Martha Ann might, but I know the service learning folks from all of our universities in San Antonio, they meet together.
Oh, okay.
So Lupita Nath might know when that happens or who that lead is right now. It wouldn't be hard to figure out, is what I'm saying. But I do know they all meet and they collaborate together. And so, Karen, I think that's a great idea of expansion. So we can figure that out. Michelle, you had your hand up and you took it down. Did you want to?
No, I just wanted to add, just from a human perspective, just change it from, services we offer. I had an experience, Celebration Circle had an experience of the Rahimi family adopting us. And they just recently moved to California, which was heartbreaking for all of us. But I just want to encourage other people who are on screen to go back to your faith communities and talk to them about adopting a family. It's life-changing. I can't even begin to explain the emotional impact it had on me and the family. And I truly became part of their family and they became part of mine. And we keep in touch. We call often, which is hilarious because we do these audio calls and we don't speak the same language, but after several weeks of being together, it was unbelievable how I could spend a whole day with them without speaking the same language and just having a beautiful time. So do it, people. Sign up.
Well, I know that communities of welcome, I saw that in chat as well, and I'm glad somebody asked or somebody clarified, but it's a collaborative unto itself, communities of welcome. I mean, it is a part of ARRC, the Afghan Refugee Response Collaborative, which is also reassessing how is that going to move forward, right? That itself. But if we look at communities of welcome as its own collaborative, and that's being assessed right now, I'm thinking a couple of things. One, of course, faith communities to participate in communities of welcome. That's needed, right? But could some folks here or other folks that they know, could the collaborative itself, the work that this team is doing, could you use a few more people to be a part of the collaborative itself and forming the direction of where this is going? And you can think about that. You might not have an answer right now, but could you use, coordinating and planning and
for sure.
For sure.
For sure, yes. I think to answer your question this is collaborative work. When we started, we would use someone, anyone interested in whatever capacity. We don't dictate what is like. If you're available, let's say, to do X, then that's great. Reach out and we can see if we can put somewhere within this community of welcome program and be part of it.
Other thoughts? It's 8:43 and we do stop at 8:45. So any last thoughts from the team that's been so great today, giving us a very thorough, lovely, beautiful, just all the faces and what was happening. And I know the mayor keeps asking, is that welcome walk going to happen again? I don't know. Does a guy not get out and walk? He has. But I do know that he's been on that. And so I'm glad that welcome walk, it was fun.
Well, in addition to the welcome walk, as you saw in the video that Neda shared, Mayor Nirenberg was also there for the concluding celebration dinner. So he's been very, very faithful to this whole process and modeling that compassionate leadership that we're all so appreciative of. I think one of the things that's important to know in all of this, and I referenced it earlier, but there is a very heavy lift, and it was Culture Ringwa, it was Nadia Neder who made it happen in being able to do the paperwork or digital work, as the case may be, but all of the documents and the legality kinds of things that had to be checked off before any of the congregations or organizations could connect to the families. So there is an incredible depth of gratitude to them for having the perseverance because that was a really tight bottleneck that they saw us through to birth this whole effort. It wasn't simply, oh, okay, here are families, here are congregations and organizations. No, there was a big legal gap that had to be bridged, and it was Culture Ringwa who made that happen.
And maybe that's a place too that collaboratively there some strength could come into that somehow, so that it doesn't have to fall on the shoulders of just two people. Because the strength in collaboratives are, expertise and skill sets that people love to use, but don't always get to use them, right? Netta, were you going to say something?
Do you want to allow me I want to say thank you to Wendy. I mean, I think it's, I think everyone's work, it's a teamwork. I mean, Wendy's leadership, Nadia's expertise, I think everyone and the community of Welcome themselves, leaders who made this happen. It's not just us, the interest that we had. We only did what we did because we saw a lot of interest, and but we wouldn't be able to do it by ourselves. This has had all the community of Welcome partners made it happen. And I want to emphasize on one point that you may think, oh, this is a lot of work, or no, every community, we can do what they can do based on their ability. If the community of Welcome can do one event, we tell them, yeah, that's great. We are appreciative of that one event that you want to put. And if you don't have the capacity more than one event, that's great. Perfect. Would love this. I just want to emphasize on this. If you can do 2 events, then that's great. If you want to do one thing, that's great. It's based on the ability as well.
I just wanted to jump in before the meeting was too late. Before the meeting was over. I
am closing the meeting, Celeste, though. So
I know. I just wanted to jump in. I wanted to jump in because I followed this link from a website, an email from the San Antonio municipal website something, and it was by it was about intersection. Like every Thursday morning there's a meeting by intersection.
That's this gathering, yes.
What is it called?
At the intersection.
At the intersection, right. So that's why I didn't know today's the day that we were talking about. I'm sorry, I missed the introduction.
At the intersection meets every Thursday morning. I'm going to quickly say, for those who, I was trying to put it in chat, but for those who need to leave, thank you for being with us this morning. Of course, you're welcome to stay, but I do need to leave in 2 minutes for another meeting. Okay. And I also want to thank the team who came this morning. But I do want to answer Celeste as being here the first time. So thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next week when we'll be talking about housing and how the faith community is trying to step up and help with this very big, I love how you put that this morning, Wendy, crisis that we're in. But we have people who are committed, just as committed as our team this morning, who are trying to make housing happen, the needed housing in our community. So Celeste, at the intersection was called into being and convened by the mayor early on in the pandemic. And the intersection, it means that it's an intersection of faith, community, and civic leaders. And so we've been meeting every Thursday morning, again, starting during COVID, mostly started because of COVID, because all of us didn't know much about COVID. There was a lot of things we had to do, and the mayor's vision was in serving those who were most in need. We certainly could serve as a very large collaborative when you think about it. It was a really a call into collaboration. So, but as the pandemic and COVID, I don't even know what the word is, moved on and developed and all those things that did in our lives, the intersection also began to evolve. And so George Floyd happened, and so conversations moved that way. Our very first actual conversation that changed a bit was what we call the silent pandemic that came with the pandemic, and that was domestic violence. So one of the first kind of things that was a little bit different than specifically COVID, where we raised 500,000 masks to give those away. That was part that came out of the intersection. But,
oh my God, great.
And but these briefings then just started to take another kind of a life of their own, where we like brought the police chief in, and then a group of folks from the intersection. We started a collaboration with the police department about police reform, and then it's just moved in different ways. This summer, we've been looking at the collaboratives that have formed in the life of the faith-based initiative, which I lead, but the collaboratives that have formed over the last 5 years. And some as new as just several months ago that have started, but Communities of Welcome started about a year ago. And so we took the oldest ones. We've kind of been progressing through these by how long they've been around, right? So we give the newer ones a little bit more time to kind of like get their act together, right? And we're recording these mornings. And so I think Billy's there. So Billy, maybe you could put in chat again where people can find those recordings. So Celeste, you could go back and read the recordings watch the recordings from this summer, and you would be hearing about all the collaborative efforts from community resourcing to mental health and wellness, to immigration and refugees. And we've spent a little bit more time, again, because these collaboratives have been around longer, right? So they've grown more things, right, in the process. So since it's your first time, and anybody for that matter, there's somebody new in town who's leading another major effort. And I was meeting with him the other day, Scott Hare, and he's with the HEB Foundation. And he's going to be working with congregations and things. I said, Scott, what you got to do is watch those recordings, and you'll get a really good idea of who's doing what, but of what's going on within the faith community through these collaboratives. Of course, it's not everything, but it has had some real significant impact, these different collaboratives. And I think the biggest thing, and somebody else can add to this, Martha Ann or Paul or anybody on the screen, but I think it's helped to kind of ignite the faith community. I mean, we've got a long ways to go, and we've got about 1,400 congregations. We got a lot of folks out there who could be rolling up their sleeves, and probably are rolling up their sleeves. We're still discovering that process, but
that's awesome.
Yeah. Anybody want to add to that from their perspective about the intersection? The only time we haven't met are Thanksgiving days, because they're on Thursday. So we've taken those off. Otherwise, we've met every Thursday since April 2020. Any other thoughts?
I just want to say, even the Thursday of the week of Winter Storm Uri, to come together to say, how can the faith community, so it's really remarkable. And I really want to say that the bringing the faith communities together, along with civic organizations and the broader San Antonio community, and what you have done is really amazing. So on behalf of all of San Antonio, I want to thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's all too kind of based on, I have to go, based on the ethic of reciprocity, which is more commonly known as the Golden Rule, and found in all the world religions. But this work that we're doing is all about service. and compassionate care. And can we not, as people of faith, no matter what that faith expression or religion is, can we not come together there, right? And serve and care, fill the gaps, work
That's
together.
great.
And we are. And so I need to go now. I love you all. Thanks for joining us, Celeste, for the first time. Thank you all. And I hope to see some of you at Pathways to Hope tomorrow and Saturday. The weeks are just flying for me this summer, but I hope to see some of you in the next couple of days. If not, I'm going to be seeing you next Thursday at the intersection. Thanks so much. Hope you get some rain in your yard, in your life, and I hope you get caught in it outside and get drenched. It feels great when it happens. So thank you. Thank you, Nader and Nadia. I appreciate it.